Mm-hmm. Here we go. Always takes a minute to get this thing going. There we go. Well, to the one person watching, hope you're doing well. Had some exciting races going on this weekend. Kansas, obviously, a historic finish there, closest finish ever in the Cup Series. Truck Series race, not a lot happened, to be honest, in terms of like anything crazy. Corey Heim won, led a bunch of laps, all that stuff. Then the F1 race, we got a new winner, a non-Max Verstappen winner, but also a new winner in F1, Lando Norris. So that was cool. Overall, just an exciting weekend of racing, to be honest. So really fun, really good to see. So I'm curious to hear what everyone else's thoughts are on it. David, in between the lanes, hope you guys are doing well on this Monday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. So, yeah, woo. What a weekend for racing fans. Quite the exciting times. Let's see here. Trying to think. I know I missed something in the race recap last night that I forgot to mention, but I'm trying to remember what it was because I did want to talk about it. I can't think of it right now. I'll think of it at some time. But let's see here. Thoughts on Prosper, Texas' own Chris Buescher coming up so close. Yeah, man. Ford's been on such a drought here. Buescher hasn't won since Daytona in August, which not that long of a winless drought, but he would have liked to win sooner, I'm sure. But anyways, yeah, I would have loved to see him win. I would love to see him be the one to end Ford's drought just because he is Prosper, Texas' own. But man, Ford just can't catch a break. They can't win, and when they get really close, they get quite literally the closest it's possible to get to winning. I mean, 0.001 away from winning at Kansas yesterday in the Cup Series. And the Xfinity side of things, they were like, 0.001, 0.002 away from winning at Texas with Ryan Sieg. And then at Atlanta, they were 0.003 away from winning with Ryan Blaney against Daniel Suarez. I mean, the ways that Ford has lost this year, I mean, some of it they've just not been up to their normal standards and they just can't catch up to Chevy and Toyota. But the 1 week they are there with Chris Buescher, they literally lose by like an inch, maybe less. So yeah, it's heartbreaking for Buescher for sure, and especially a guy who hasn't won a lot in the Cup Series. If Larson had lost that race, he's in the playoffs already. Oh, he's going to win a bunch more times. And that's not saying that Buescher's not going to win a lot left in his career or he's never going to win again. But, I mean, just comparing Hendrick to RFK right now, Hendrick's going to win another few races this year across multiple drivers. RFK, the way things are going, they may only get 1 or 2 wins this year. So you got to get them when you can. So it's a little bit more heartbreaking for Buescher than if it was Larson losing. But regardless, still a great finish and still a great day for Buescher. That's, as I said, that's the most speed Ford has shown all season at an intermediate. So they desperately needed that run, but they desperately need a win now. So we'll see what they can do at Darlington. We'll talk about that later. If Kyle Busch doesn't spin, do you think Hamlin and Truex would have a better shot of winning? Truex was flying at the end there. He was like 4 seconds back with 12 to go, and with 6 to go when the caution came out, he was less than half a second away from Denny. So I think Truex would have got there. I think he would have passed him. I think he would have run away. I know Hamlin was saving, and Hamlin said post-race, I was saving. If I wanted to go full throttle, I could have, but, ultimately we didn't get to know. But I think Truex would have won the race. I don't know what Hamlin's fuel situation was. I know he was saving like crazy, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure that Hamlin would have run out, but I think for sure Truex would have passed him. He had slightly fresher tires. He was a little bit better at the time, and he was just really, really fast. So I think if that went green to the end, if Kyle Busch didn't have his problem, I think ultimately that Truex would have passed Denny Hamlin for the win. What's up, Trent? Hope you're doing well. 4 wide, yeah. As I said late last night, that was very late post race. That's how crazy this race was. I did not even mention once that there was a rain delay. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about in this. I did not mention one time that there was a rain delay for that race yesterday. That's how crazy that race was. That's how crazy the finish was. That's how crazy all the events of the race were yesterday. I did not even mention the rain delay. It's the first rain delay we've had since Daytona. Have we had a Cup Series rain delay since Daytona? Was that it? That's not bad. Talladega, I'm still baffled to how we got that in. We were supposed to have rain that entire weekend, but everything got in on time then. But Cup Series race at Kansas got delayed due to rain, and we got a night race, essentially. At least the last bit of it was under the lights. I love night races, so it was fun to see Kansas under the lights again. And, of course, under the lights, they produced the best finish in the track's history and maybe all of NASCAR history, which I'm sure that will be a debating point. Was that the greatest finish in NASCAR history? You compare that. You compare Craven versus Kurt Busch in 2003, Johnson at Talladega in 2011, Suarez at Atlanta earlier this season. Just think about it. This season in NASCAR alone, we've had 3 all-time great finishes. We've had the Suarez win at Atlanta, winning by that much over 2 other cars. We had Sam Mayer beating Ryan Sieg in the Xfinity Series by that much. And then we had yesterday Kyle Larson winning by that much. So, I mean, it's been crazy the kind of year we've had this season. So, it's been a great year so far. Great racing for the most part. There's been a couple, Phoenix was meh. It wasn't bad. Richmond was all right. Martinsville existed. But other than that, pretty good racing throughout the year. So, it's been a really good season so far. And we've got, I know Hendrick and Gibbs are dominating it in terms of the winning and whatnot, but there's been some good racing this year, which is always good to see. Truex was the only driver to take 4 tires on the final pit stop. Everyone else took 2. He wasn't the only. He was the first of guys to take 4 tires there. A bunch of guys behind Truex took 4 tires, but Truex was the first to take 4. I didn't think he'd have a shot at the win just because he was starting too far back. He restarted 10th, I think. He ended up finishing 4th, which on the stat sheet, you're going to see +6 in 2 laps. And you're like, oh, that's realistic. But when you look at the timing sheet, he was less than 1/10 of a second away. That's where it's crazy. That's where it's just completely chaotic, is that he was less than 1/10 of a second away from getting his first win of the season. That 4-tire stop ended up almost being the right strategy. I did not think it was going to be, and ultimately it wasn't. But he was a caution away. He was Larson and Buescher hitting each other too hard away. Truex got really close there, and that's 2 times this year that Truex, he could have won if it wasn't for a late race caution, and caused by Kyle, actually. Larson spun at Richmond, and then Busch spun at Kansas. Truex could have 2. He could have 2 wins this season if it wasn't for late race cautions, but ultimately, it happens. That's what it comes down to. 5 wide, I think you mean. Yeah, that was another crazy moment in this race when Buescher splits Chastain and Bell, and then it was Truex was on the outside. I can't remember who was on the inside, but Buescher split the middle of Chastain and Bell. They were 5 wide there for a second. That was just crazy to see. That was the moment of the race early on until that finish. I was going to declare that the moment of the race, but the finish just absolutely owned, I guess, in a sense, that moment. Both really cool moments, but the fact that that was the finish that makes it a little bit more superior to the 5 wide. So there we go. When do you think Martin Truex Jr., Marietta, New Jersey zone, Martin Truex Jr. gets his first win of the season? I think there's a great shot that he could do it this week at Darlington. He's run great there historically. He's got a few wins at that track. He's won a Southern 500 before. I know this isn't the Southern 500, but it takes a really good driver to win at this racetrack. Truex, obviously a champion. I think he's got a great shot this week. Joe Gibbs Racing has always done good here. You look at Kyle Busch. He's got a few wins here when he was with Gibbs. Denny Hamlin obviously has a great track record here. Who else? Eric Jones, when he was at Gibbs, he won a race at Darlington. So it's a great track record for Joe Gibbs Racing, but also Martin Truex Jr. So I think very well could be. It could be Darlington. It could be Charlotte. He's got a great shot. Gateway's so young in its NASCAR Cup Series career. It's kind of hard to say definitively who's really good there. But then Sonoma, obviously another great track for Truex. So we've got some really good tracks for Martin Truex Jr. coming up. I would not be surprised if he won any of them. But yeah, I think Darlington for sure. He's got a great shot there. Could have won both Richmond and Kansas with the auto owners insurance colors. Yeah, and he's got auto owners again this week, I believe, for his throwback. I think his throwback is to his 2016 Southern 500 one, speaking of. But let's see here. Let me look it up. I'm going to look up the entry list. But yeah, I mean, he should have a fun throwback, I'm sure. We got some good throwbacks this week. We got some all-time great throwbacks, and we got some that are like, okay, at least you tried. I'll take the effort. But yeah, I mean, Truex is auto. Yeah, he's running that. All the Hendrick throwbacks are great this week. The 5, the Terry Labonte throwback is going to be great. The 9, the Dale Jr. throwback, it's pretty accurate. I'm not a Dale Jr. fan, so I guess I don't have the tie there, but everyone's freaking out about it. Chase Elliott, Dale Earnhardt Jr., 2 most popular drivers. Everyone's losing their minds over it. I personally love the 24. I'm biased. That was the first 24 paint scheme I ever saw, was that Firestorm paint scheme that they call it, and then the 48, throwing back to Jimmy Johnson's first championship. So, yeah, and then let's see. Let me think of some other throwbacks. I'm trying to think of like the best. Oh, Chastain's throwback. It's like a throwback to an old Busch beer can. That's a great looking paint scheme. It just came out today, as I said. Let's see, going down through this list. A lot haven't been released yet, so it's hard to really know. Daniel Suarez has a neat throwback to a Mexican IndyCar driver, I think. But it's pretty accurate. It looks pretty good. The number font is different. It's kind of an older style. Looking through some of these others. I'm just looking at the entry list. Oh, Harrison Burton has a really cool throwback. He's throwing it back to like one of the Wood Brothers' first ever paint schemes, first ever cars. It's all black. It's got like the oldest font you could possibly think of on a race car. It's a really cool looking race car. But yeah, those are some of my favorites just right off the bat for the throwbacks. After we see them on Sunday, obviously, then I'll let you know the throwback. Yeah, Austin Dillon's doing a throwback to Dale Sr. It's obviously really good looking, the gold and whatnot, but I think it's like the number is the wrong color or something. There's something I have to complain about for it. I think it's the number is the wrong color. I can't remember. I'll look up a picture of it later. Duke Chronic says 9, Chase Elliott. Elliott's been on a hot streak here. He's got 5 top 5s in the last like 6 or 7 races, so they're looking good right now. I was watching pre-race a little bit, and they were comparing Hamlin and Larson stats head-to-head, and ever since Larson went to Hendrick in 2021. Larson leads Hamlin in all categories. I mean, yeah, I think that 2021 season's going to help Larson a lot too. 10 wins, 26 top 10s. I just looked up his stat sheet the other day through his career. So I think he had 26 top 10s that season. He led over 2,000 laps. I mean, that season alone, just one of the most dominant we've seen in the post 2000 era. It's going to be hard to top in the modern era. It's going to be hard to top the 98 Gordon season where he won like 13 of 32, 33 races. But Larson's was pretty darn good, to say the least. He won 10 races, as I said, over 25 top 10s, over 20 top 5s. He led over 2,000 laps. I mean, just freaking wild, man. The 5-1 on 5-5 Cinco de Mayo. Yeah, I did not think of that. Thank you very much, Duke Chronic. I actually did not think of that. That would have been a great intro. If Larson just won that race normally, like, takes the lead on overtime, runs away, wins it by 0.6 of a second, then you know what? Cool. Whatever. The 5 wins on 5-5. Open the video like that. Call it a night. But unfortunately, Kyle Larson decided to win in the most fascinating fashion. And also, I did not think of that. So, very good job, Duke Chronic. I actually did not think of that. Very smart. It's a very good thing to point out. It would have been funnier if the race ended at 5:55. But that was not the case, as we know, because rain. Did you get the invite to Noah Gregson's study group? No, but man, that's awkward that Priest did not get an invite. That's a little awkward. Ryan Priest, let's see here. Here we go. I already have it on my recently searched because I did it for that video I put up this afternoon. Let's see. Here we go. Study group that I wasn't aware of. That's the direct quote. And then he put the little emoji dude like that. So definitely awkward for Ryan Priest. But yeah, it's awkward to put it at the very least. Awkward. There's a helicopter nearby. Don't know if you can hear that. Not NASCAR related, but your thoughts on the Thunder Maverick series. I'm a Thunder fan, so I'm hoping the Thunder can win. Obviously home court advantage is nice, but Dallas looks good right now. It's going to be hard to stop Luka and Kyrie. Other than that, I don't know. I'm just going to let it play out. I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not going to say anything. That's just putting myself in a trap. But I obviously live in the Dallas area. I grew up in the Dallas area. Everyone I know is a Dallas fan, so I'm hoping the Thunder can win so I can all rub it in their face. But I don't know. We'll see. If not, I'm done for. I'm going to get a lot of crap thrown at me. So hopefully that's not the case, though. Stars took down the Golden Knights in Game 7 as well. Yeah, Dallas sports, except for that one team who freaking is stupid. Looking good. Rangers are the defending champions. Stars looking good. I'm not a Mavericks fan. I don't care about them. But they're in the playoffs. They're still alive. So if you're an all Dallas sports fan, you're having a good time outside of football. I can't stand the Cowboys, man. I'm a Cowboys fan, but I just can't stand them. I don't want to talk about them. It's May. I don't want to talk about them till like October when I'm ranting about them sucking. It was a great weekend for racing F1 in Miami, and Lando beat Max straight up. Yeah, the funniest part, everyone's like, oh, Lando got lucky with the safety car, blah, 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 blah. And then Max Verstappen had that quote. You can look it up. But it was a very funny quote. But basically, yeah, Lando got lucky, but that's how things go in racing. You get things that go your way or they don't go your way, and that can be in the lightest manner. It can be in an extreme manner. And in this case, it was an extreme manner for Lando. He was running 4th, 5th, 6th, wherever he was early in this race. They ran him long, and the safety car comes out. He's got a 15-second lead over Verstappen because he hasn't pitted. And all of a sudden, he's your race leader. So getting the fresh tires obviously helped. But, I mean, Red Bull just didn't really fully look themselves. I know Max won the sprint. I know he won the pole. But he never really gapped the field like he normally did. Like, it took him a while to build a 4 or 5 second gap on Leclerc, and I don't even know if he got to 5 seconds. So the Red Bull at Miami definitely was not its normal dominating, blistering pace. It was still really good, still race-winning speed, but just never able to gap the field, as I said, like they normally do. So for sure, the Red Bull just a little bit off this weekend. I'm sure they're going to just obliterate everyone at Imola, though. In 2 weeks, as they always do, they have a bad weekend or they don't win, and they just come back and just drop kick the field. Perez almost took them out in turn 1. Yeah, man, Perez just almost did what Lewis Hamilton did, but in a worse way. And golly, if he took out Verstappen there, I think they would have shredded up his contract on the spot. That would have been rough. That would have been rough for the team's financial department. Would have been rough for team morale. It would have been rough for the relationship between Verstappen and Perez. But thankfully, Perez missed him. He just missed him. So it worked out at the end of the day. They both scored points. One of them was on the podium. Nobody had to get taken out. Nobody's car got destroyed. But, God, I know Christian Horner was freaking out there for a second. Chase Elliott is 3rd in the world. All right. I know what we're going to look up right now. No one said anything about it yet. I don't know how we've gone this far into this live stream without it getting mentioned. Fantasy. I forgot to sub Denny Hamlin in. That was dumb. So I lost 30 points on that. That was disappointing. I had Ty Gibbs in. That was a big hit. I had Bubba. I had Reddick. Bubba and Reddick disappointed this weekend. But it was a rough week. I fell back in the points again. So your leader in Fantasy NASCAR on the channel league thingy, I will do as I always do. And I will put the link in the little comment section thingy. I'll pin it. If you want to join, go for it. We do this every week. It's a fun time. No big prize involved. We're not to that point yet. But here you go. Feel free to join the NASCAR Fantasy League for the channel. Zerkman95 is the leader. I think he just retook the lead. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I think Dan the Jets fan was leading last week, but Zerkman95 is your new leader, I'm pretty sure. He leads it by 2 whole points. 2 points. Dan the Jets fan is in second. Another great race, great season for him so far. Big Hat LJ still in that conversation, only 18 points behind. It Factor Autosport Incorporated steadily in 4th. Dr. Zero 5th. RT Racing 6th. I am 7th. Just cracked the 2,000 points. PC_18 must have had a bad week. Fell back to 8th. Pins_22 9th. Otterbear 8 10th. Hell on Wheels 24 11th. Matt Smith 53 12th. 13th is Micah MLB 15. 14th is Stevie G. 15th is 45 and 23 11 fan. 16th is Shane Van Hamburger Buns. And then 17th is Tyler Hernandez. So that is the standings for the Fantasy League. For those who care, this week's race winner was race results. Micah MLB 15. Way to go. 235 points on the week. I finished down in 10th with 160. If I had 30 more, I would have finished 4th. But unfortunately, that's not how it works because I forgot to sub because I am dumb. I am very dumb. Chase Elliott finished third, pretty good. Yeah, as I said last night, I really thought Buescher and Larson were going to wreck each other, and I thought Elliott was going to steal this thing, but not the case. Larson and Buescher kept it on the track. I saw some people complaining that Larson was like door slamming Buescher. Like, what? People don't complain about Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven knocking the crap out of each other. Why are you complaining about Larson hitting Buescher? Like, they're racing for a win. If he completely dumped him, if he put him in the grass, maybe that's something to get mad about. Maybe it's a little dirty, but just door banging. It's NASCAR stuff. I swear, people always need something to complain about, and it frustrates me. But thankfully, we are positive for once on this weekend. I'm not even going to go back to the negativity. In fact, the weekly Jeff Gluck poll that he does for, like, was this race good? It's at like 96% last I checked. It should be 100, but I'm biased just because I really like the race. It's at 95.7%. That might be the highest in his poll history. I don't know. I have the information somewhere, but I'll find it later. But 35,800 people have voted yes, or have voted, and 95.7% of them has said yes. Chase has been pretty good on the mile and a halfers, or mile and a half milers, 1.5 milers. I can't read sometimes, guys. It's rough. But yeah, I've never thought of that team as a mile and a half team, but Texas pulled something out there. I thought that was a miracle. You know, they've never been good at Texas since the repave. And suddenly, you know, they had things go their way with the strategy, but after that, they were genuinely top 5 speed all day. And then, I mean, yesterday at Kansas, they weren't top 5, but they were 8th to 10th most of the day. Played the strategy right. Alan Gustafson, haters and shambles, which I always love to see. And they finished third. So that's back-to-back top 5s at the mile and a halfs for Elliott after having 0 top 5s on mile and a halfs from 2022 to 2023. The only outlier this year is Vegas, actually. Vegas, he ran like 16th or something. So they found something. They're getting the results. But as for other guys who have been good on the mile and a halfs this year, Larson, obviously, you know, Larson led a ton of laps at Texas before the tire fell off. He won at Vegas. He won at Kansas, and that's what we expect of Larson. It's just kind of, you know, these mile and a halves have been great for that team. Hamlin, Toyota as a whole, Hamlin, Reddick, Bubba, even Bell at times. You know, we've seen Ty Gibbs really emerge at these kind of tracks as of late. Even Truex, but Truex is just really good everywhere except for super speedways. But even there, he's got like the longest active streak for finishes. Sorry, my laptop just got really hot. But yeah, this thing's old. It's getting replaced in a few weeks, so just prepare yourself. But yeah, just Larson in this next gen. If I had to guess who had the most wins a mile and a half, I'd guess Larson or Hamlin. Larson's got 2 this year. He won at Vegas last year. He won at Homestead in 22. What are the other mile and a half tracks? Atlanta doesn't count anymore as a mile and a half. Texas, Larson should have a win there in the next gen era, but he doesn't. I don't know. That's counting for later. It'll take me too long to count. But Larson or Hamlin would be my guess. Chase Elliott is David's pick to win at Darlington. Yeah, I guess we can move on to Darlington now. We're about halfway through this thing. Darlington in the next gen era hasn't been confusing, but we've actually seen quite the variety of winners. We saw Joey Logano win the first one in 2022. The 2022 Southern 500 was Eric Jones. That was something. The spring of 23 was Byron. after Larson and Hamlin, or not Larson and Hamlin, Larson and Chastain decided to just wipe each other off the face of the earth. Then we saw who else? Who won the Larson won the Southern 500 last year, so Hendricks won the last two. I expect Larson to be competitive once again. I expect him to be competitive almost every week. But Hamlin, it could be Larson and Hamlin. It could be Byron. Byron's been really good at this track in the next gen era. It could be. It's probably going to end up being Hendrick and Gibbs again. Let's just be honest with ourselves here. We might see Tyler Reddick up there. Reddick did really good at this race in the fall, the Southern 500. He had one of the best cars, probably the second best behind Larson, or maybe even third best behind Hamlin, his team owner. But ultimately, just didn't get the win. And I'm going to reboot this thing. It's getting annoying. But ultimately just hasn't won there yet. Larson, that Southern 500 last year was his first win at Darlington, surprisingly. He's led so many laps there, won so many stages. And I picked him. I pick him every year to win the Southern 500 because I'm like, oh, he's bound to win it one of these times. He's come too close too many times. He's going to win it. Last year was the year it finally paid off. And, well, we'll see how they do this year. It's going to be funny if they win back-to-back, not just in the season, but at Darlington after going so long without winning at Darlington. But I expect them to be contenders. I expect the 24. The 9, Elliott was pretty good at Darlington in the old gen car. This gen, I know he ran third in this race last year, or he finished third, but he didn't run particularly great in the race. Like, he wasn't top 5. He was, if I remember correctly, he was kind of 9th to 13th, and they just kind of took advantage of those late race cautions, just, played things right strategically, avoided the crashes and all of that. But I'd say my top 3 right now are Larson, Hamlin. I'm going to lean Byron. I would have picked Reddick, but after the last week, I don't know. That was a shockingly bad race from Reddick in 23:11. But I think it'll be one of those 4 for sure to win. If I had to guess, I think Truex will be up there though. I think Bell could potentially be up there. As for Ford though, we've been asking this question for every freaking week of the season. When is Ford going to win? They have a shot at Darlington. They have a shot every week, theoretically, but Darlington's kind of short track-ish. It's more intermediate, but we saw Buescher run third in the fall race last year. We saw Brad run good in this race last year. We saw Harvick finish runner-up in this exact race last year. But Logano won this race 2 years ago, but Penske has just not been good this year. Just straight up, Joey Logano's like 20 points out of the playoffs right now. I'm not going to declare anything right now because it's still early-ish in the season, but we're a couple races away where we got to start asking questions. Not about Joey Logano's talent and ability, but about that specific team. Like, are they going to miss the playoffs? Right now, once again, my concern level on a scale of 1 to 10 for the 22 team is at about a 5 right now. It's not over the top. I'm not having a full-blown panic attack over that team, but I'm not feeling particularly great. I'm not relaxed going to sleep at night knowing, yeah, the 22 is going to make it. That's one of my preseason Final Four guys, and he might miss the playoffs. But once again, it's still early. They can still pick it up. They can have a great summer. Darlington, once again, he won at this track just 2 years ago. There's a lot of things that can happen, so I'm not quite ready to declare Logano as concerned about Logano, but we are getting very close to that point. But I'm concerned about the majority of Ford, with the exception of RFK. And it's not like RFK's been lighting everyone on fire. It's just that they've run the best out of the Fords so far. Gregson's looked fantastic in his first year at SHR. Briscoe's looked all right. He's in the playoffs right now, so I'm not really concerned about them. SHR is breaking my expectations. I expected all four to be in the mid-20s in the points, and we've got one in the playoffs right now. We got one only 60 points out, 70 points out, and that's with a penalty. Like, if it wasn't for Gregson's penalty, he'd be within a race of the playoffs. But outside of Gregson, Briscoe, Buescher, Keselowski, Ford, and Blaney's been good too. Outside of that, the concern for Ford is very, very high right now. So, Alex Bowman. Bowman. Trying to think what he's done historically at Darlington. He doesn't have a win there. I think he crashed out of this race in the fall. I don't think he raced this race last spring. I think that was during his injury period. So I don't know. I really don't know what to expect with Bowman this upcoming week. I mean, he's not going to run 25th, but I don't know if he'll dominate. There's your range. 25th and dominating. I'm just kidding. I'd expect him to run 8th to 10th. That's basically been what they've been doing all year. He's got so many top 10s this season. He's got to have 9 or 10 at this point. I mean, that team's just been extremely consistent. Racking up top 10s, they've been killing it. I'm sure they'd like to have a win at this point, be locked into those playoffs, not have to worry about that. But 9th in the point standings, he's got 7 top 10s on the season. That's tied for the most in the league right now. Truex has 7, Reddick has 7, Bowman has 7, Byron has 7. So that's tied for the most in the league right now. As I said, they are extremely consistent. This is what they did last year before the Bowman injury. They just kept on racking up top 10s and top 5s. No, they didn't have winning speed, but they kept finishing 4th, 7th, 8th, things like that, and they were leading the points. It takes consistency to win a regular season championship. It takes consistency to win an old format championship. Unfortunately, we're not in that era. Wins matter a little bit more in terms of the bigger picture, but it's just Bowman's just a consistent driver. He's consistently top 10, and sometimes he gets up in the top 5, and of course we see him win a race every once in a while. So they've been doing good this year, but they just have to take that one little tiny step forward to get that win. The NASCAR app on the phone does not actually show top 10s anymore. They show top 5s and poles, which is a little bit annoying. I don't care who's wanting the most poles this year. I care about top 5s and top 10s and wins more than anything. And laps led. Laps led is a huge factor. But laps led this year, Larson's got the most, 633. Hamlin's got 606. Those two, 1 and 2, no surprise there. They've been killing it. Truex has led 437. Gibbs has led 201. Wow, he's 4th. 5th is Joey Logano. What? Logano's led 190. Where did Logano lead laps? 199? Did he lead at like Bristol or Martinsville or something? That's what it was. I think Martinsville. Yeah, because he stayed out. He led all those laps at Martinsville when they took the right side tires. McDowell's led 73. Todd Gilliland's led 95. Derek Kraus has led 8 laps. Okay. Random, but okay. David Reagan's led a couple laps here. LaJoy's led 38. Josh Berry's led 31. I remember those ones, though. Let's see here. Yeah, what a list of laps led this season. My goodness. Mark, do you remember me from like 2 years ago? What's up, Mark? Are you when we were doing live streams during like COVID, me, Zach, and all that? Were you the one that always asked the epic questions? You asked some pretty good questions. If you're the Mark I'm thinking of, am I right? If I'm right, I'm gonna be so proud of myself. Is that correct? The anticipation is killing me. I'm scared to move. But hello to Mark. If you were the same Mark from a few years ago during COVID when we would do the race reaction. Yes! I knew it. I hope you're doing well, Mark. I really do hope you're doing well. I remember that. That was a fun time. Me, Zach, Jared, Grant. Man, it was a fun time. That's some fun questions. COVID was a confusing time, man. There was so much off time. I didn't know what to do. Channel had so much off time. I didn't know what to do, so I just made things up as I went. Obviously, saw Zach, Jared on here every once in a while. We'd try to make something funny, try to make something entertaining. It was a fun time, though. It was a fun time. COVID, as weird and confusing and freaky as it was, we had a fun time on the channel. Mark was there for that, so good to look back on old memories. So for sure, yeah, fun. That was always a good time. Looking at the... How do you make this work? Okay, it's confusing. It's too confusing. Most stage wins this year, we're just going through random NASCAR leaderboards in certain statistical categories. Wins, Byron, Hamlin, they're tied. Top 5's Larson with 6. Top 10's is like a 4-way tie between Bowman, Byron, Truex, and Reddick. Most DNFs. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Oh man. Michael McDowell with 4 DNFs on the year. That's why they're 26th in points. My goodness. Yeah, McDowell, I said this earlier in the video today, but front row's shown speed this year. They just haven't gotten the results, and I specifically gave Talladega as an answer. It reflects in the points. But my goodness, 4 for McDowell, 3 for Christopher Bell. A couple other guys have 2. Went through the lap sled. Stage wins, Larson has the most with 6. Second most is at 3. That's Hamlin. Truex has 2. Gibbs has 2. Elliott has 1. Reddick has 1. Blaney has 1. Chastain, Buescher, Bell has 2, actually. Logano has 1. Austin Cindric has 2 stage wins this year. I was at one of them at Talladega. I didn't even know the second one. McDowell's won a stage. That's it. Not much else to it. Byron has not won a stage this year. That's a little surprising, but all right, cool. Good for him. Or not good for him. Jimmy Johnson, bad racing. That was a weird one because I don't have the data. I just go off what they say. LaJoy said he hit the brakes. Johnson said he got turned. He didn't know what he was doing. So I really don't know. Did Johnson hit the brakes really hard? Did LaJoy just drive through him? Definitely one of those weird situations, but I don't know. It wasn't egregious. It wasn't that bad. But the Jimmy stare down was funny. That was really funny. I didn't talk about it in the video yesterday, but that was quite funny. I found that quite humorous. Mark graduates in 2 weeks, looking at race cars for sale to start racing. Hey, that's fun. That's fun. Good luck to you. I hope you do well. Hope you're able to find something affordable. Be competitive. Win some races. That'd be really cool. But best of luck to you, Mark. I feel for the 17. The weight of Ford, NASCAR, RFK, and his team on him winning that race. Yeah. As I said earlier, if Ford wasn't in such a winless drought, if he had won a race already this year, or even if they were like 4th, 3rd in points, and they're going to win a race at some point this year, guaranteed, you wouldn't feel as bad for them. You'd be like, it sucks. You hate to be on the losing end of history, but, you'll get over it. You'll win a race in 3-4 weeks, whatever. But when Ford is winless through, 12 races now, when Ford has this new body that they've debuted and talked about, and they've come close to winning. They lost by .003 at Atlanta. They were 1-2-3 coming to the Tri-Oval at Talladega. And they're still winless. then ultimately it hurts a lot more. But I think the biggest takeaway for me in that situation was Ford finally has speed, like true raw speed from someone. Okay. Blaney showed glimpses of it early in the season when he ran top 5 at Vegas. Other than that, I've got nothing. I know Brad finished runner up at Texas, but he did not run up there the entire race. Blaney ran up front the entire race at Vegas. Buescher ran up front the majority of the race at Kansas, with the exception of the penalty, and he was back in traffic. They played the strategy card, whatever. But other than that, he was fast all day. He drove up to the top 5 early in this race, scored stage points. He won a stage in stage 2. He was fighting for the win. He literally lost by that much. So it's a very promising sign for Ford, for RFK, for Chris Buescher, that they ran top 5 the entire race, that they won a stage, that they almost won the race. So it sucks. It's heartbreaking. It's soul crushing. It is a kick to the gut. Better days are coming, Ford. I promise. Yeah, they'll have a win in this. If Ford does not win a race, I will walk down a public street and point and laugh at every single Ford owner I see in a parking lot. That's not going to go terribly wrong, but that's how confident I am that Ford's going to win a race this year. God, Ford, please win a race so I don't actually have to do that. Cloud3341 Blade says, I see a lot of people saying bring back Chicagoland. I think it shows how this car is amazing at intermediate tracks. If you want fans to be entertained, add tracks that fit the car like a glove. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Chicago's a very similar style to Kansas, same shape, same kind of configuration. The backstretch has a little bit of a curve to it, but it's nothing extreme. I think the banking is similar. Someone, I'm sure, can correct me if I'm wrong there. But 2 very similar racetracks. And if the next gen was at Chicago, yeah, it would for sure put on great racing. I'm not sure what the facility is like today, but we talked about this last week, 2 weeks ago, recently, within the last couple weeks on this live stream. But we kind of said, or I kind of said, some might have disagreed. I said that as long as the Chicago street race is there, I do not think that they will go to Chicagoland, just because they want the Chicago street race to be the NASCAR event in Chicago, the Chicago area. They want that to be, they're promoting it already. It's been promoted the last few weeks. It's been promoted since April. This race is in July. We didn't start getting Darlington advertisements till a week ago, within 2 weeks of the race. So the Chicago race, a lot of money's been poured into it. A lot of eyeballs are on it. And there's just so much writing on it. There's so much attention on it. I truly think that as long as the street race is in Chicago, Chicagoland will not come back. But that's just my opinion. I could get proven wrong. They could indeed go to Chicagoland, run Chicagoland in the fall, have the street race stay in the summer. But as I said, I really think that NASCAR wants the street race to be the race in Chicago. Just my opinion. The banking at Chicago is 18. What's Kansas, like 23, 24? Kansas, progressive banking, the bottom is 17, the top is 20. That's close. It's kind of close. I've heard the Chicago street race deal's up after this year, so hopefully this is the last street race and go back to Chicagoland. I don't want to give up on the street race that easily. Once again, I'd love to see Chicagoland back on the schedule, especially with how good the next-gen car is at these intermediate tracks. But the street race last year was really good. I know the mixed conditions helped it, and it helped make it exciting and entertaining. There was a lot of passing, and rain, treacherous conditions make drivers make mistakes, which always makes things more entertaining. But it was a fun race last year. This year, I don't know if we're going to get rain again. I don't know what it's going to be like now that we've got a year under our belt. The drivers know the track. Maybe it won't race as good. But I want to give this race a couple of years, at least 3. It's more than a couple. I want to give at least a few years to the Chicago street race. Now, if the city of Chicago terminates the deal, you can't do anything about it. Tough scene. But if NASCAR has the option, if it's in their hands, give it at least 3 years. The ratings for this race last year were insanely good. I know we had the washout in the Xfinity race. I know the Cup Series race got delayed and they had to cut it short. But ultimately, as I said, I thought it was a really good race. So, and once again, like, it's a really big deal that NASCAR is racing in the streets of Chicago. They're not running in a road course outside the city. They're not running at the 1.5 miles, an hour away. They are running through downtown Chicago, through a park. Like, it's, I don't know. I think NASCAR is so invested in that street race that they will do whatever is necessary. Why not have Chicagoland and the street race on the same schedule? As I said, I just think if you're NASCAR looking at the Chicago street race, with how much you advertise this race, how much you promote this race, how much money is being invested into this race, there's so much going into it that you don't want to dilute the value of it by putting another race in the Chicago area in the year, because people will see the ticket prices for the street race and they'll say, oh, I don't want to pay that much. I'll just pay, a quarter of the price to go to Chicagoland an hour away in September, in October. So I think ultimately NASCAR just wants to make that the Chicago race. And as of now, I can't blame them. It's crazy how Ford lost the race and the Mustang Dark Horse lost as well. May the Ford not be with you. That's a good pun there. Cloudy 341. That's a good pun. May the Ford not be with you. But yeah, so we talked about this earlier in the live stream. They have just gotten drop kicked in the face in terms of heartbreaking losses. They lost Atlanta by .003. They lost Talladega after being 1, 2, 3 in the tri-oval. And then they lose at Kansas in the closest finish in Cup Series history. You can't make this up, man. You cannot make this up. Just genuinely crazy. So it sucks to be a Ford fan right now if you're a Ford fan or a Ford executive or a Ford driver. Just don't be associated with Ford. I'm kidding. You can be. I'm just saying it's not a fun time. This month of May might be the best month of NASCAR on the next gen. Kansas, North Wilkesboro, Coke 600, and Gateway. Gateway's in June, I think, but I get your point, man. And don't forget Darlington. Tracks that put on great racing. Wilkesboro. Kansas. No one's going to argue with you there. Darlington has put up some decent racing in the next gen era. North Wilkesboro, we've only had one race, and the thing that made North Wilkesboro special last year was the tire wear, because the track was old. It had so much character. I'm curious what the new surface is going to do, and also the short track package. We're going to have to talk about that again if the race sucks. So, and then the Coke 600, I have high expectations for. As we all know, the intermediates with this track, or the intermediate tracks with this car, have been fantastic, as we just talked about with, bringing Chicagoland back if someone wants to do that. It's just been so fantastic. So, Charlotte, everyone's got high expectations for. And then Gateway, once again, I think Gateway is technically in June, so we'll talk about that one down the road. What do you think about the prices of fruit being $100 at the Miami Grand Prix? Oh my goodness. I saw that menu, and the Miami Grand Prix officials' excuses were, hold on now, that was meant for a group of like 5 to 7 people. And I'm like, 5 to 7 people divided by 150 is still like $30 a person. Like, what are we doing here? That's a lot of money for fruit, for lobster rolls, for... The funniest comment I saw, everyone's like, oh, these prices are insane. I would never buy food. If you buy food, you suck there, like blah, blah, blah. The funniest response to that menu picture was, where's the chicken tenders and french fries option? I thought that was a really funny comeback, because everyone had the same complaints about it's too much money, and that's a lot of money for food. I'm not saying that they are justified in that pricing, but I just thought the chicken tenders and fries response, I found that very funny. I found it amusing. Do we have a return of the big three with Byron, Hamlin, and Larson? Ooh, you're asking a good question there. Larson and Hamlin have led the most laps this year. Hamlin's tied for the most race wins along with Byron, so they got that going for him. That's 2 of them. Larson has the most stage wins. Larson's leading the points. Hamlin's third in the points. So Byron has 3 wins this year. I have the stat sheet pulled up. But here's the funny thing. Byron has no stage wins this year. That might surprise you. And he's only led 185 laps. I say only as if that's not a lot of laps led. So he's, I would say out of those 3, he's the third, but he's definitely right now in terms of how everyone's doing this year. I would put Byron third in line. I'd say Larson's 1, Hamlin's 2, but there's not a big gap. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, Larson for sure 1. Like if you told me Hamlin was 1 and Larson was 2, I wouldn't argue it. I mean, you could argue either way. It's just that Larson, he has more top 5s. He has more top 10s. He has more laps led. He has more stage wins. And Hamlin's problem with his results isn't speed. Like, it's not like he runs 17th every once in a while. It's that he's wrecked. He wrecked while fighting for the lead at Texas. He wrecked while being in the potential winning strategy at Talladega. So when they have shown speed, when things have been going well for them, just things have gone wrong. So it's not a lack of speed. It's not a lack of trying. But right now I'd say Larson is, you know what, let's say Larson 1A, Hamlin 1B, and then Byron third. Let's see here. That's how much your Jordans cost. That's funny. Byron has no stage wins. That's surprising. Yeah, that's what I said. So we were reading through the stat sheet earlier of the Cup Series standings, and yeah, that was the biggest surprise. And here's another surprise for you. So Byron has no stage wins, but Austin Cindric has 2 stage wins. I'm very curious to what that response is going to be. So Austin Cindric has 2 stage wins. There was another random one. McDowell has a stage win. Okay, maybe there wasn't another random one. Oh, Michael McDowell has the most DNFs. That was the random thing. But Larson has the most with 6. Hamlin has 3. Truex, Gibbs, Bell, and Cindric have 2. Yeah, such fun times. Byron was a surprise for me. Not showing up at Kansas is crazy. 23-11. Hopefully they can turn it around. Byron, they showed speed in practice, and then the qualifying incident just ruined their weekend. Byron was able to make his way into the top 20, and he was in the top 10 for a bit, but they got shuffled back a bit, and they finished 23rd. I think I called it their weakest race of the season, so yeah. But I just think it was because of the poor qualifying position, just completely messed up their weekend. 23-11, though, that was extremely disappointing. I expected them to be competing for the win, at worst top 5, and they ran 13th and 17th most of the day. Reddick, I can't think of when he was in the top 10 during that race. The only laps he led was from pit cycle. Bubba, the only way he got into the top 5, top 10 was from strategy. So those 2 were massive disappointments this week. And that entire team, we expect them to be competing for the win at that track, and they did not. So no other way to put it. Just going to be blatantly honest, is that 23-11 was disappointing this weekend. Ryan Preece showing no speed, especially his tweet that surprised me. Now we know which charter Tony Stewart is selling. Yeah, for sure. Talked about that in the video a bit. We talked about it here early on, but yeah, Preece might be out. I thought I was just reading too much into it, but maybe not. Maybe I'm like 5% smart. That would be nice. Might be optimistic, but, you know, we'll try. I try. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for watching this. It was a fun time once again. We do this every Monday after races. Um, as I said, it's fun. We got Darlington upcoming this week. I'll keep you updated on that. Anything else news related, I'll put a video out on, and then anything I need to tell you in the community post. But thanks for watching again. Hope you enjoyed, and to everyone who asked questions, it was a fun time.